Okay. Um, Before I start, I would like to thank all of us who have assembled here today morning, US time, and tonight, India time. Today is also the very auspicious 75th appearance day of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami, whose heart and soul was book distribution. And he was the one who introduced me to Bhaktivinod Thakur and asked me to pursue my academic career when I was about to join the Merchant Navy. And so, more than 2 decades later, I wanted to start today's presentation by thanking him and with a little Mangalacharana. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswamini Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So before we start, I wanted to quote a couple of passages from a letter from Tamal Krishna Goswami in honor of his memory on his 75th birthday. And he echoed the first paragraph of Bhaktivinod Thakur's Jaiva Dharma when he wrote a letter to me saying, Bengal is wonderful in all of India and India is wonderful in all of the world. And then to encourage us in doing Sankirtan, and I was trying my best to distribute books and arrange programs and so on and so forth. He pointed out to the Guru Parampara and said that with such an exalted ancestry, which all of us have, how can any one of us achieve anything but wonderful results? And then he pointed out, as Vaisheshika Prabhu kind of indicated, that there are some people who we have not met before, and we are introducing Krishna for the very first time. And so Gurudev Tamal Krishna Goswami pointed out that preaching with a mood of boldness and determination in the face of opposition is the mood of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as well as Srila Prabhupada. But in our interfaith work, we have to be willing to understand that there are many expressions of the absolute truth under different religious headings and appreciate the sincerity of the adherents of different religious traditions. And he says, in this regard, I would direct you to some of the writings of Bhaktivinod Thakur, who has expressed himself very appropriately in such circumstances. So before I go to honor Bhaktivinod Thakur, I wanted to do it through the mercy that flows to the Guru Parampara. And that's what Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev had to say. And then on the disappearance day of Bhaktivinod Thakur in 2000, I think 1991, I can't see July 1991. He kind of echoes, or Vaisheshika Prabhu kind of echoed what he said. We cannot calculate the debt which we owe to Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur. Practically, the Krishna consciousness movement is based upon his design because it is he who revived the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and who gave it a modern outlook towards expanding the preaching mission worldwide. Our movement, Srila Prabhupada says, is based upon the teachings, the process, the means, the method which Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur inaugurated. And therefore, as the pioneer of Krishna consciousness in the entire world and throughout the Western world, therefore this movement is based upon him, rests on him, and depends even now upon his blessings. Therefore, on his disappearance, we offer him ourselves eternally in his service. And this is what Srila Prabhupada had to say. Bhagavan Sri Krishna Chaitanya foretold, the singing of my name is sure to be spread in every village, in every town throughout the world. In order to materialize this divine saying, both Sri Sri Bhaktivinod Thakur and Prabhupada, Sri Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami, tried their best, and under their direction, even at the old age of 70, I started for America. There, for a full 1 year, I had to experience great difficulties in my single handed mission on this account. And at last, at New York, with the help of a few friends, we were successful to have the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And in this way, Srila Prabhupada points out to the mercy of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And I wanted to uh, include two front pages of the books of two previous acharyas, Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. On the left, you see that this book was sent to the library at the University of California in February 1897. That is, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was himself a book distributor, and he was sending his books to all of these libraries. And then many years later, Srila Prabhupada wrote his dedication page to the sacred service of Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who initiated the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in the Western world. And Prabhupada mentioned McGill University, Canada in 1896, the year of my birth. The thing is, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also sent his books to other universities, Chicago, Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, and McGill. But somehow the McGill book has stuck in the popular imagination of devotees. Right? So we do have a precedence of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sending devotional literature to people in the Western world. In fact, he initiated a conversation with the very famous thinker, Ralph Waldo Emerson. I think somebody is trying to cut the grass at this moment. Let me just close the window and I'll be right back. Didn't anticipate this. I hope it's not too much background noise.
No, it's fine, Prabhu. We can hear you okay.
And then to go through the parampara to understand the mercy of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I selected a small lila from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur that happened on his disappearance day. Then one time in Calcutta in 1919, so exactly about 102 years back, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur suddenly declared, here at Bhaktivinod Asan, we must gorgeously celebrate the Tirobhav Mahotsav of Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur. Organize a massive festival, invite thousands and feed them all. His few disciples had no idea how this could be possible, as the scheduled date was looming ahead and they were already strained just to maintain the regular activities of the asana. Shortly thereafter, a zamindar, a feudal lord, visited the asana for the first time, and after hearing Srila Bhaktisiddhanta speak only for a few minutes, volunteered to contribute 30 mounds, about 1,000 kilos of rice, and a cash donation for the festival, during which over a ton of rice prasad was distributed. So you see what Vaisheshika Prabhu is doing to us, pushing us to distribute the books of our previous acharyas. And sometimes we think, is this realistic? 25,000 copies for Bhadra. When I heard that number for the first time, I was like, whoa. But this is the way the mercy of the parampara flows. And this is what Saraswati Thakur did. This is what Tamar Krishna Goswami did. This is what Srila Prabhupada did. So we are in very safe hands. And so what you have here is a picture of what we call Bhaktivinoda Parivar, the family of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And since today morning's session is on the literary genius of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I want to point out that he is the first Vaishnava Acharya who is also an English poet. No other acharya before him actually wrote poetry in English. And the poetry he wrote was appreciated by literary gazettes in England during his time. Right? And so I've selected one poem I wanted to read out to you today morning. It says, Saragrahi Vaishnava. Saragrahi means essence graspers. And Bhaktivinod Thakur says, there are two kinds of people in the world, those who bear burdens and those who can grasp the essence. And he says, who is an essence grasper? Well, alas for those who spend their days in festive mirth and joy, the dazzling, deadly liquid forms their hearts forever employ. So those who are drawn to the deadly liquid forms of the world are future Saragrahi Vaishnavas, but most of us start there. The shining bottles charm their eyes and draw their heart's embrace. The slaves of wine can never rise from what we call disgrace. So, who is excluded from being a Saragrahi Vaishnava? One who is intoxicated with the world, and the wine represents that. The slaves of wine can never rise from what we call disgrace. Was man intended to be a brute in work and heart? Should man, the Lord of all around, from common sense depart? And Srila Prabhupada says that the material world is a hard struggle for existence, and we get the exact same idea in Bhaktivinod Thakur. He says, are we intended to be a brute in work and in our heart, and go leave behind our common sense and just work and work in this material world? And then he says, as an answer to that, he says, man's glory is in common sense. If, as human beings, we are any special, it's in our common sense, dictating us the grace that man is made to live and love the beauteous heaven's embrace. The flesh is not our own, and we are on borrowed time, actually, and borrowed resources. The flesh is not our own, alas, the mortal frame a chain, the soul confined for former wrongs should try to rise again. Let's not ask how we got here, because there might be X number of reasons. But the fact that we are here and we want to get out of the misery is the indication that Bhaktivinod Thakur points out in this poem, that the flesh is not ours, and the mortal frame, our body, is a chain, and we are confined in this world for former wrongs, but we should try to rise again. Why then this childish play in that which cannot be our own, which falls within 100 years as if a rose blown? Have you seen a rose that ages, kind of just falls away, crumbles away? So that's exactly what's going to happen with our bodies. Our life is but a rosy hue, to go ere long for naught. The soul alone would last forever, with good or evil fraught. And Bhaktivinod Thakur indicates that each one of us can be antarmukha, that means turned inwards, which is going back to Godhead, or bahirmukha, turned outwards. And so the body will fall apart sooner or later, but the soul alone will last forever. And it has the choice of being with good or with evil fraught. How deep the thought of times to be, how grave the aspect looks, or rapt in awe become, O we, when reading nature's books. And all it takes is common sense and a look at nature, and the fundamental principles of Krishna consciousness will become very, very clear and apparent to us. Man's life to him a problem dark, a screen both left and right. No soul hath come to tell us what exists beyond our sight. But then a voice, how deep and soft, within ourselves is felt. Man, man, thou art immortal soul, thee death can never melt. And there is an inner voice within us which tells us that death can actually not touch us. And this is the message of the Bhagavad Gita of Sri Krishna. For thee thy sire on high has kept a stair of bliss above. To end of time thou art, O his, who wants but purest love. We belong to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And to the end of time, the only thing that he wants is but our purest love. O love, thy power and spell benign now melt my soul to God. How can my earthly words describe that feeling soft and broad. This is the bliss of Krishna consciousness. This is where Bhaktivinoda Thakur says an individual devotee can start becoming a saragrahi when he feels or she feels the melting of the soul to God, right? The feeling that is soft and broad, enjoyment, sorrow, what but lots to which the flesh is heir? The soul that sleeps alone concludes in them it hath a share. And then, my friends, no more enjoy nor weep for all below. The women, wine, and flesh of beasts no love for thee bestow. And everything that really attracted us about the world gradually begins to slip away. But thine to love thy brother man and give thyself to God, and God doth know your wages fair. God is the ultimate justice giver. This fact is true and broad. But tell me, not in reasoning cold, the soul is made alone by earth's mechanic, lifeless rules, and to destruction prone. And Srila Prabhupada pointed out many, many times that life comes from life. And this is the exact idea that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying here. Don't tell me, in reasoning cold, the soul is made alone by earth's mechanic, lifeless rules, and to destruction prone. My God, who gave us life, and all alone the soul can kill or give it all the joys above, his promise to fulfill. So, how to become a saragrahi? Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, push thy onward march, O soul, against an evil deed that stands with soldiers' hate and lust. A hero be indeed. Maintain thy post in the spirit world as firmly as you can. Let never matter push you down, push thee down. O stand, heroic man. O Saragrahi Vaishnava soul, thou art an angel fair. Lead me on to Vrindavan, and spirit's power declare. There rest my soul from matter free upon my lover's arms. Eternal peace and spirit love are all my chanting charms. I hope you relished it. Thank you so much. On the left, we have a picture of some of my adventures in preserving these works of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. As you can see, libraries in India are not always the most efficient in preserving ancient works. So my struggle over the last 20-25 years has been preserving the works of our previous acharyas. And so I put a little picture there. There are a couple more things I wanted to quickly bring to your attention. And here we have a page from the notebook of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. On the left, it says Song 8, Narada Muni Bajaye Bina Radhika Ramana Name, Namo Yamuni Udito Hoy Bhakoto Gito Shame, Omyo Dhara Borishe Ghano Shrabono Jugale Pia, Bhakoto Jono Shaghone Nache Bhoria Apono Hiya. Right? And so on the left, you can meditate on the handwriting of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I discovered this notebook from the collection held by Sundarananda Prabhu, who was the secretary of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And this is now preserved at the Bhaktivedanta Research Center Library in Kolkata. And so this is just one of the relics from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's library that we are currently preserving, translating for future generations. This is a note, a page, the first page of a 202 page letter that he wrote to his son, Srila Lalita Prasad Thakur. And right now, the Bhaktivedanta Research Center in Kolkata has commissioned a translation that I am doing to be printed by Mandala. At least that's what they said their choice is. And these books are coming out one by one. What you have here are some pictures from Birnagar. The letter that you saw in the previous page addressed to Lalita Prasad Thakur is still held at Birnagar, and I am a custodian of all his estates there. On the top left, you have Srila Prabhupada in conversation with Lalita Prasad Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's son. On the right side, you have his birthplace, and at the bottom, you have a picture of Bhaktivinoda Thakur that I recovered from there. It's a very famous picture, actually. It kind of circulates quite prominently around ISKCON and other groups. And here are the temples that he spent his childhood years playing around. And the place at his birthplace was originally designated by him to be a research institute, and we are slowly building it according to our capacity. On the right is yours truly holding a tree that was planted by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's a jama tree on his childhood, home, and it still bears fruit every summer. So, if some of you want to take the direct prasad of Bhaktivinoda Thakur from a seed he planted during his childhood, we can go and get the berries during summer. And here are some instructions from Srila Prabhupada. He had Yaduvara Prabhu microform some of the handwritten stuff at Bhaktivinoda Thakur's place, and he said, "You may develop the films of manuscripts from Birnagar and inform me what you have done and which manuscripts are with you. Then I shall inform you to where to send them for translating, etc." A long plan was to get all of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's books translated in as many languages as possible and distributed around the world. Uh, uh, and we are trying our level best to fulfill that desire of our previous acharyas. And here is another place where I had the good fortune of serving and curating Bhaktivinoda Thakur's personal artifacts. On the left is the original deities of Mayapur, Gaura Vishnu Priya, that Thakur personally installed. And he kept a picture of Gaur Vishnu Priya right next to his bed. And these are the pictures he meditated on when he passed on from this world. So that picture is still there. It's not in a very good shape. And on the top, you see his room. And I'm sitting there and trying to serve his deities. The wall had fungus and stuff on it, and we kind of did a little samskara on the walls. At the bottom on the right side, you see his wooden shrine. And because it was completely destroyed, I, with the help of an assistant, made a little marble shrine to house his beloved deities. And I don't know if you know this, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur had sets of deities at different places. So in Orissa, he had Radha Madhava. In Swarupganj, which is now the deities are in Yogapit, he had Kunja Vihari. In Calcutta, he had Gopijana Vallabh, and he had a Girivaradhari that he used to keep wherever he went. So the song Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari are the names of his deities. So what you have here is the bed in his room where he passed on. And this is me serving his Gopijana Vallabha deity in his Calcutta home. And behind you see right here, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but in the background, if you see a little Shila, that's the Kurma Shila that he gave to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur during his childhood, and Saraswati Thakur worshipped it throughout his life. And that Shila is still there. And when I went to help the family out with their deity worship and preserving Bhaktivinoda Thakur's legacy, Janani Prabhu sent a pair of eyes for the Shila. Unfortunately, the day I went there, I found out that the family had just sold the press, the printing machine of Bhaktivinoda Thakur at scrap iron rates. And I was one day late. It is one of the biggest regrets of my life. But I have tried what I could to preserve everything that has been handed down within the family and the spiritual family of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. All of us are here today and will be gone tomorrow. But if we keep these things behind, then as future generations of Bhaktivinoda Parivar, the spiritual family of Bhaktivinoda Thakur expands, people will actually find more reason to be Krishna conscious. They will find shelter. And practically in every song, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, Bhaktivinod Ashraya. That means the shelter of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right? Which has two meanings. For his followers, the meaning is we are constantly sheltered under Bhaktivinod Thakur's divine guidance. And for him, it means he is constantly sheltered by his previous acharyas and Bhagavan Sri Krishna and Srimati Radharani. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me today morning.